Hey guys, welcome back to ATO Audio. Today on the channel, we're going to be continuing our restoration of this Pioneer SX838. We're going to be taking a look at the lighting today, and as you can see, we've got some bulbs burned out, so we need to address that. We also need to address this indicator for the FM and AM radio. There's also additionally the aux light is burned out here, and also the FM light is burned out. So we're going to take care of that today. We're going to upgrade these with LED lights, so that way we get years and years and years of use out of them. So if that's something you're interested in, stay tuned and let's get started. All right, guys. So to get started, we need to do some disassembly. And so we're going to start off with the bulbs behind this cover here for the AM and FM tuner. So to get that, we're going to have to take a couple screws off. And so on each side, we have these metal brackets, and they're attached with two screws. And I'll throw some pictures up on the screen here so you can see what I'm talking about. We're going to need to loosen those up. We're not going to take these all the way off. We're just going to loosen them up enough to where they're not biting on this anymore. And then there's a bracket up top as well. And it's attached by two screws here and here. And we're going to remove this bracket completely. When we do that, we're going to carefully take this indicator off. You know, if you guys still have your dial pointer on here, you want to be very, very careful. Ours is broken off, so that's going to be something we have to fix. So it's not going to be as big a concern for us. But if you still have that, be very, very careful because they do get brittle over time. Once we've done that, guys, that's going to give us access to the fused lights behind here, and then we'll just swap them out with the new LEDs that we have, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do that, guys. You guys hang out for the ride. Now, once we get to this part, you can see these brackets are still attached, so they're just loose. Okay, and so there's a bottom strip of adhesive on these, and so you want to be very careful. You don't want to put too much pressure on this when you're taking it off, because especially around these meters, they can snap very easily. So what I suggest using is kind of getting yourself a little scraper, a plastic one or something, and you can use that to kind of help you with it. So I'm going to start on this. Well, this one's coming off very easily. It doesn't usually come off this easy. So, but you'll just take your scraper on the bottom there and just help it pop off, and you'll see the adhesive right here. So that one came off super easy. So we got very, very lucky on that. So put this in a safe place, guys, and then from there we can access these bulbs here. So I'm going to change the camera angle, guys, so you guys get a good view of this, so you know what I'm talking about. All right, guys, hopefully I've got you guys at a good angle to where you can see this. So once we've taken that off, guys, you'll see this exposes our fuse lamps. And so we've got 6 fuse lamps here, and then you'll also see our selector lights for what component we're using, our stereo light, and then we have speaker A, B, and C lights. So we're going to be replacing all these fuse lamps. We'll also replace the stereo light and then the FM and the aux light as well. From there, we'll move in, we'll go ahead and swap out these two fuse lamps behind these meters, and then lastly we'll address the indicator light as well. So what I like to use to get these fuse lamps out, it's just a little screwdriver, and I'll just pop them out, and they'll roll out front, and then I'll just catch them. And we're going to go ahead and put some cool blue LEDs in there, and so these will make it look really nice. I really like the way these work. And so my trick to get these in, because it's kind of pain in the butt, is I'll use a needle nose plier, and I'll just, at the very tip of the needle nose plier, I'll hold the LED, and then I'll just slide it in underneath the lamp and just pop it in. And so obviously I'll just repeat that process. And so that's all there is to it, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it in just to make sure that we don't have any problems. And turn it on. And so as you can see, all our lamps are working. So that's how easy it is to change those out. You do have a little bit of disassembly, but this is going to look really good when we get it all back together. So next, guys, we'll move on to our indicator lights. The first one we're going to do is a stereo light. And so I'm going to change the camera angle so you guys get a better view. But while we're in this camera, I'm going to talk about how to get this bulb out. And so there's a couple ways to get it out. A lot of people's natural instinct is to pull this out of the back. And like I said before, these get cooked in there because they're incandescent bulbs, making it really hard to get out. So you can do that. You're probably going to break this holder in the process. But another thing you could do is try to push it forward. This bulb looks like it's in there pretty good, so we're going to have a little bit of a difficult time, I'm sure, and I'm not sure pushing it forward will work. The other thing you can do when you can't get it out is break the bulb, vacuum out the glass, and then you'll have to be exposed to your wires. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get this out, guys. Just hang on while I do that. As I'm doing that, guys, there's another plate up here that we need to remove that'll make this process a lot easier for us. And so I'll put a picture on the screen. That way you guys can see what I'm doing and what plate I'm taking off. Once I take that plate off, it's just going to give me a little bit better access to this lamp. And so I'm just going to wiggle this back and forth and see if I can't get that light to release. Sometimes it won't release, guys, and what you can do is get a screwdriver, and around the bulb, you can kind of just poke it in and see if you can get it to release that way. Like I said, you can always push this forward as well. It's super brittle, but that's okay. And just like that, guys, we've got the bulb out. So let me zoom you out a little bit, and you guys can see that I've got the bulb out. So all I did was wiggle it back and forth and use the screwdriver to kind of loosen up the holder around the bulb. Now, guys, you're going to be doing this, guys, and this is going to break. And don't freak out. It's not a big deal. We're just going to use that same hole and slide it back in with the LED. So let me change the camera angle, guys. That way you guys can see exactly what I'm going to do with this bulb and what we're going to do to change it out. All right, guys, so here's that bulb we just took out for the stereo indicator. And so it's attached here and then down here on the tuner board. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm just going to go ahead and cut that bulb out, strip some of that wire back. And then I'm going to splice in my LED wire right to it, okay? And so there's a couple ways you can do this, guys. The way I like to do it is solder these together and then put a heat shrink over it. So that's what I'm going to do. And then we'll just slide the bulb back into the holder, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of flux on the end of both of these wires and hit it with a little solder. That way it'll just be a little bit easier to solder the other wires together. Before I do that, though, I'm going to go ahead and slip on my heat shrink. That way I don't forget, because I've definitely forgotten before. Take a little flux on the wire. Hit it with my iron. And this just makes it easier to solder the two wires together. So that way there's a little solder on the wire already. I'm going to do the same thing with the other ends of my LED wires. Okay, now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and solder on. So I think this is the negative side, so I'm going to do that. Honestly, I don't think it matters with this particular LED. There's a resistor in series with it. So this can kind of take a little bit of time to get the hang of holding the two wires together. Now once we got this, guys, I'm going to go ahead and plug it up and make sure it works. And look, we got light. So now we've got it wired up correctly. Okay, so we know the stereo light's going to light, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it back off. Now I'm going to slide over my heat shrink. May have to hit that again to spread this solder out a little bit, make a little nicer of a joint. All right, guys, so this is ready to rock and roll. So we're going to slide this back into the holder. And for at least for this one, we're done. And that's all there is to changing the bulb on that. So we're going to repeat the process now for both the the FM and the auxiliary lights. And so I'll do that off camera, guys, and then we'll come back and do the meters. Here we are back, and so as you can see, we got all our lights working now. So we got our stereo light, our AM, FM, phono 1, phono 2, mic, and auxiliary light working, and all of our speaker lights are working. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to the meters, and those are fuse lamps just like these, and so we have to come at from those from the back. So I'll change the camera angle and I'll show you guys how to change those out. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and change out the fuse lamps behind the meters. And so in order to do that guys, we need to remove this screw and this screw. Once we do that guys, we'll kind of have to pull this metal shroud back a little bit. And it's kind of a tight squeeze, but you'll have just enough room to pop out the fuse lamps, which are right behind here, and put the new ones in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that guys. I'm not going to fast forward this one guys, so you guys can kind of see what I'm doing, because it is kind of a tight squeeze. And just do the best you can guys with these wires. Try to get as many of them out of the way as possible. Once you do that, you'll get room to here. And it's really hard to see guys, but now I've got access to the bulbs down here. And so I'll take a picture of this so you guys can see what it looks like up on the screen. But once I have access to here guys, you're kind of going to have to do it by feel. You're just going to kind of pop out those bulbs and put in the new bulbs. And so it's not very hard. And if you need to get a screwdriver to help you pop them out, you can. But that's all I'm going to do is I just pop this one out here. So I'll discard that one. And then I'm going to put the new one in. Pay close attention to how you put these in, guys. You don't want to put it in like this, because then your LEDs are facing to this metal shroud. So make sure that you put it in the correct way. Not a big deal if you don't, because once you get it in there, guys, you'll be able to rotate it if you need to. That's all there is to it. And so I've just did one. And let me see, I'm going to use my screwdriver to pop out this other one. And it's a lot easier once you get one side out, you can pull the other side out. There's the other one. And so then we'll just pop in this last one. And then from there, I'm just going to put the two screws in, guys. And that's all there is to that. Now we're ready to tackle the indicator light. So alright guys, before we go ahead and start repairing the indicator, let's go ahead and put our screen back on and button that up, and that way we can kind of take a sneak peek of what it's going to look like with our new LEDs. Alright, so now we've got that back together. Let's turn it on and see what it looks like. And already, guys, it looks a whole lot better. So, we've pretty much got all our lighting squared away, except for this indicator light. Now, this thing is tricky, guys. We're going to have to be very careful not to break anything when we're up here. We're at a kind of an advantage since it's already broken. We don't have to worry about that. But hopefully, we'll be able to fix this. So, I'm going to go ahead and zoom you guys in on here, and I'm going to try to get a good view to show you guys what I'm doing. If not, I'll take a few pictures and put them on the screen as well. That should be a pretty good view for you guys. So in this little black box here is the incandescent bulb that lights the indicator for the dial. And so in order to get this, you'll see here and here on both sides these little metal flaps. We're going to have to take a screwdriver or something and peel those back on each side, and there's one in the front and one in the back on each side to get us access to this bulb inside. Once we have access to it, we can take this little compartment and try to glue back on the indicator pointer that is broken off. then we'll go ahead and swap out this bulb. So I'm going to go ahead and start trying to do that, guys. I'll loosen up these two tabs here as well. And that way I can pull some wire through, and that'll just give me a little bit of extra leeway. See where these red dots are, guys? That's a glue, and there's tabs underneath there too in paint that holds the position on this string here. So I'm not going to mess with that. I'm just going to loosen it up here so I can get access to some of this wire. And so you can see now that this is loose, and I can pull some of that through. So I've got a little more leeway here. From there, guys, I'm going to figure out how to peel back this compartment here. And what I've seen that worked good is just taking my little tiny screwdriver and kind of twisting it. Oh no. This whole thing is broken. So we're going to have to go to plan B, guys, and let me come back and after thinking about this for a second and see what we're going to do. Guys, there's no real good way around this. This thing's pretty broken, so I'm just going to try to get it out, minimizing the damage as much as I can. Again, since this is an incandescent bulb, just over time, it getting hot, it just makes this plastic brittle. And so, unfortunately, when we're trying to fix these things, sometimes these things just break, and there's really not much you can do about it. This is kind of when you get to learn what you're good at, because now we're going to have to figure out and fabricate something to make this work. So I'm going to try to minimize the damage as much as possible, understanding that we may not be able to save this. We're just going to do the best we can and go from there. And so there's what's left of it, and we might be able to work with that. So all we do is the bulb just comes out from the top here, and then we basically have what's left of the dial pointer and this box. And so it's not ideal, but we might be able to put some glue here and kind of bridge that and try to glue the dial indicator. So let's just put that off to the side for now. So now that we have this part, guys, we're ready to go ahead and swap out this bulb. So all I'm going to do is cut this off, guys. I'm not going to try to save anything there. I'm just going to cut this wire. And now I'm now ready to get my bulb, new bulb, and put it in there. So, all right, guys, we're back, and had to spend a lot of time trying to rebuild this box. And so I've got the dial indicator back in there. I actually tried to make a totally separate thing, and that just didn't quite work out. So I'm going to try this repair. And so basically tried to use glue to rebuild the shape of this box, and I think it's going to work, but we're fixing to find out here in a little bit, guys. So that's that. The next thing I did, guys, was kind of build my standard LED light for these dial indicator lights. And so all this is a red LED, a 3mm red LED, and then I soldered in a 100 ohm resistor. So for newbies, it's very important that you put a resistor on your LEDs when you're doing this, because if not, the amperage is going to be too high and it's going to burn out the LED. So very important, on the positive side, you want to put that resistor, and solder it in series with the LED to protect the LED. So now that I got this, I'm going to go ahead and slip over the heat shrink on there and get that squared away. So that looks pretty good. So now we're just going to attach it to our wires. Before I do that, though, I'm going to get some more heat shrink and put on both sides, so I can, after I've soldered these on, I can put that over the connection. And so I'm going to have a lot of extra wire, and that's okay. It's not going to hurt anything in the unit, and I'd rather have too much wire than not enough wire. So I'm just going to go ahead and solder these connections. I've already identified this as the positive side and this is the negative side. And so it does matter on this, so you got to make sure that you do it correctly, guys. What I suggest doing is turning on your stereo and then just testing it out to see when it lights. And then you can, when you figure that out, you can just solder it in that way. So I'm going to go ahead and solder that, guys, and then just be right back. So we've got this pulled through. So I'm just going to kind of leave it like that for now, give me a little bit of slack, because what we're going to have to do now is wrap it around and put it into that box, and then clamp it around, clamp the box around it. And so this is the part, guys, where you want to be very careful, because as we're trying to manipulate this in there, this is very susceptible to breaking. And so, Lord willing, y'all won't see me break this on camera. So we're just going to put it in that little box there. Tuck it underneath. And y'all can see what I mean, how much of a pain in the butt this is. And then what I'm going to do, guys, is just take my pliers and hope that I don't break this box as I clamp down on here. There's the other corner in. We'll do this back corner. And so that's kind of what it's going to look like, guys. So so far working, and we haven't broke anything. So I've got to get this last tab down in the back corner here, and then we'll be able to put it on, and hopefully it still works. I say hopefully because I've done this many times, and the LED, either the solder connection comes loose after twisting it around like this, or it's very, very frustrating because it's really hard to manipulate this small box. It's even harder since we're trying to be super careful, since the box is already kind of compromised on this as well. All right, we got it in there. Whew, I'm glad that worked. So that's the finished product right there, guys. And so now we're just going to tuck these wires back through and put it back onto the rail here, and then hope it works. Matter of fact, let's turn it on right now and see if it works. It's working, so that's a good sign. So I know that was probably not the best camera work in the world, guys. It's super hard to get a good angle on something so small, but we're just going to have to roll with it. If y'all have questions, y'all can leave them down in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. And so the faceplate's going to cover a lot of this, guys. So, but now we have one more critical piece to do, and that's to get this on the slide without breaking this dial and ruining all the hard work we just did. So to do that, I'm going to actually bend these pins up a little bit, kind of take some pressure off the wire. That way I can pull a little bit more wire through to clean this up a little bit. So guys, I think I'm gonna call it right there. I'm gonna stop screwing with this before I break that. So all I'm doing now is just pushing those pins down. And so guys, there's a trick to getting this back on the slide, and it's kind of just tipping it back, getting the catch on the back end. And then sliding it forward. And pray to God that don't break anything. Woo! There we go, guys. And now we have the dial. Let's turn it on. And it's working. So hallelujah. So we have just changed out all the bulbs in here, guys, and we fixed all the broken bulbs. So kind of a long video for such a simple task when it comes to most of it. This complicated it a lot, having to fix this apparatus. You know, usually if everything's good and you don't have to fix this, guys, it does go a little bit smoother. But because this was broken, we had to take a lot more time. This by far the biggest pain in the butt is doing this dial indicator. So just be extremely careful, guys, because you don't want to break this. There are no replacements on the market for this right now, and so if you break it, you're kind of SOL, or you have to reinvent the wheel to get something to work. So I'm actually working on something for future builds, and when I figure out what I'm going to do to remanufacture these, I'm going to make a video about that too, because I think this problem happens pretty frequently. At least it has in my repairs. So I hope that helps you guys learning how to change the lights out in this SX838. So if you got any questions, guys, I know there's probably some bad camera work there. Just ask some questions down in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them, guys. But other than that, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.